Same thing with fear and asking for a raise. We can sit there and create 1,000, a million reasons of what bad things are going to happen if I ask for my raise. And we're going to be stuck in that loop and burn a ton of energy and feel really bad about it. Or we can ask those questions, the 3 questions, and then make a decision of what's important to us.
Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast, where we talk about everything body, mind, and spirit, health, and wellness. No subject is taboo here, and we have fun peeling back all the layers. Let's do this.
Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Wellness Amazon podcast. Today, we're going to go back a little bit into the metaphysical world, into energies, into your inner self. I know we've talked about a lot of health and body and all these things, which they're important too. And today, I welcome to the show Kris Land, who is an award-winning author of an award-winning book. And he's also a conscious creator. And we're going to talk a lot about spiritual awakening and what I think is most important, awakening through fear. That was what caught my eye the most, I think, about your work, Kris, because I think that fear is usually the biggest block that people have on why they're not moving. And when I saw and I read awakening through that fear, I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's cool. So welcome to the show, Kris.
Thank you very much for having me. I can't wait to dig in.
Yeah. So how in the world does one get to have a download like this, right, and write such a fabulous book?
That takes us back 40 plus years ago. I grew up in North Dakota. I was what would be considered a computer geek. I started selling Apple II computers when I was in junior high, so that ages me a bit. And one of the people that bought an Apple II for me wanted to do accounting software for their farm. And so he knew what he wanted to write. I knew how to code it. And we did that and built a little company around it. And then when I was 17, we sold the company for a big pile of money. And then a few months later, I fell into a deep depression. And nowadays, we talk about how people destroy their lives, not all, but quite a few destroy their lives by winning the lottery. And for me, I have at least an understanding of how that looks, because when I sold the company, made a pile of money, and was sitting there going, now what? I've accomplished everything I've been told I'm supposed to do in life. I've done the success story. I've gotten a bunch of money. I created a company. I did all the things that I was told would make me happy. And it left me with a place of, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And so that then led me, I ended up getting hired at a bank in San Diego, and my boss, his name was Kris as well. And he kind of started this whole chain of events. What happened was, is we were in a discussion talking at lunch or coffee or whatever, and he basically said, I'm an atheist. I said, all right. I have no problem with anybody believing anything they want to believe, but for me, it didn't sit right for him. And so I got very curious about how that looks and why. And after a couple of weeks of kind of noodling it around, I came up with 4 questions that when you ask somebody the 4 questions, it does not prove you have a soul, but what it does do is it shows you that all the upside is in believing you have a soul, and all the downside is in believing you don't, regardless of whether you do or don't. And so I asked Kris these questions, and it shifted his whole reality for him. It shifted in a good way, but it left me with a question, which is, okay, great. We have a soul. What is it? What does it do here? What's its purpose? I mean, what is this thing, right? And then that was what I call the first leg of the 3 legs on the stool that started me very much into the spiritual side of things. However, I had other things that the other 2 legs on the stool. So one of the other legs on the stool was, as a child growing up, I was always very curious about theologies. And I mean all of them, anything I could get my hands on. Sanskrit, Egyptian, Catholicism, Christianity, Buddhism. I could go through a whole bunch. And what I found fascinating is that even though the semantics were all very different, the result of the stories, the end result of what they were trying to say, all seemed to be pretty much the same.
Mhm.
And so from that, I said, well, I'll get to what I said from there. The third leg on the stool is growing up, I also had a lot of not real things happen to me. Things we're told are imaginary. I had out of body experiences starting at 6. I had near death experiences, one that could have easily been a full on death experience. And those fundamentally shifted how I looked at reality. And what we're told is real, I would argue, is actually the illusion. And what's actually going on is behind the curtain. And we could dive more into that. So those three things got me on the path of saying, great, what's a soul? Well, the easiest way to answer that was to go to the Bible because it's the most read book on the planet. And there's references in chapters and verses. And in the New Testament, less so. In the Old Testament, throughout, it's strewn throughout. Things like, we are the children of God, where Jesus tells his disciples, you will do everything I have done and much more. It's constantly, there's many chapters and verses that say, basically, we're gods and we're here in this reality. And it's fascinating that when you shift it from looking at Jesus on a pillar to maybe he was here just to teach us what we could do and remind us of what we are. It's a very interesting shift when you read through the Bible again and look at it from that lens. And that may be offensive to some folks, which is fine. And I'm not trying to tell anybody to believe that. But for me, when I read the Bible again from that perspective, it took a very different feeling
Mhm.
from or to it. Okay, so great. If we run with the track that we're these godlike entities, well, what does a godlike entity do in life? And when I see life, I don't mean on planet Earth, I mean like in total existence. I could only come up with three things: create stuff, meaning planets, universes, whatever, destroy stuff, and play games. Okay, so let's assume that's correct. Well, create and destroy, we don't have to spend a lot of time on. Pretty straightforward, right? Creating a game. Well, what is a game? A game needs three things: needs playing pieces, needs turns, needs rules. And with those three things, you could have a game. Great. Let's take a jump and say that we're in the game of planet Earth, and then we can go from there. I'm digressing into the whole story. I want to stop there for a minute, and then you can ask questions where you'd like. But basically, what happened is I developed this entire construct based, kind of like you said, a download. It was interesting in my 19s and 20s when I was working on these ideas and concepts from these three legs. It was kind of like just dropped on me day by day. And I put all my notes together. I hired a ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter kept wanting to make it her own story. So I fired the ghostwriter and put all my notes in a filing cabinet. And then I founded 11 more companies and did the tech thing and had a pretty successful business career and blah, blah, blah. And then I started writing books and becoming an author about 4 or 5 years ago. And then in parallel, my wife had a lot of challenges growing up. So she would always ask me things about life. I would share perspectives from the concept that I built in the book. And so in the beginning of 25, she said, you have to go finish this book. It has helped me fundamentally in the way I see how things work. You have to finish it. So in 25, I got all my notes out of this old filing cabinet and spent about 3 months and finished the book and then published it mid 25. And here we are now.
Wow. You know what's interesting? Every time I have someone on the show who talks about these metaphysical things and awakening and energy and inner power and all these things or manifestation blocks, right? And they're so masterful in that subject, they all came out of the tech or IT industry. All of
Yeah.
them. That's where they started. I wonder if because if you're a tech, you're so removed from that energy that this is just such a calling to you that gets so like you cannot ignore it anymore, you know?
Well, I can tell you that what got me into programming is I considered it the closest thing to magic that we have on earth.
Uh-huh.
Because you write these lines of code, and if you write them in a certain way, they go do stuff. And if you write them wrong, they don't work.
Uh-huh.
But you can put these lines of codes and these words together in like a incantation, and it goes and does stuff. And there's no limit on what it can do. And so
Yeah.
for me as a child and growing up, it was the closest thing to magic that I could get my hands on. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of creation too. You're creating completely new things out of nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And then I want to mention too, when you said near death experience, uh, or out of body experiences, those are things when that happens to people, you can't come back from that and just ignore that. This is impossible. And I know that there's whole clubs and organizations existing just for people that used to have or that had a near death experience in the past that helped them to integrate themselves back into society. Because once you have touched that light, that feeling, that emotion, that whatever experience you have there, right? It is so hard to go back to normal life and do these mundane things every day because nothing has meaning anymore out of a sudden. It's just all so superficial that we do here every day.
Certainly the things that we're told are quote unquote real.
Uh-huh.
One of my favorite stories is, how many times have you heard of children seeing ghosts?
All the time. I have one myself. My child was clairvoyant when she was little.
So here's the next part of that question, though. You may have treated it differently, but what would you say is the predominant reaction from parents for kids that
Yeah.
experience this?
That's not real. You're imagining things. You were dreaming. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So look at what that's actually doing. It's setting up a construct, teaching us as a very young age that what we're seeing is not real, it's
Uh-huh.
imaginary, and don't believe it.
Yeah.
And in a sad way, it's kind of like gaslighting, right?
Yeah.
But but the parents don't do this to be mean. They don't do this to harm the child. They do this because they were taught that the best way to calm a child's fears is tell them it's not real. It's imaginary. You had a dream. You had a nightmare. When in fact, maybe what they were seeing was actually the reality. And what we teach each other from a young age is the illusionary curtain of being small, of being disconnected, of not remembering that we're actually co-creators in this game.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. And I think it's our own belief too that we as adults are further removed from that and we try to live in this reality and we have that pressure of career and doing things and doing everything right. And we want our kids to be able to, prepare them for life, right? And I don't know, feeding, for an average parent, and I'm using air quotes, feeding into their thing that they say I saw a ghost, we might think that's harmful if we do that. So but it's
That's
again,
because
it's
we
an
were taught.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
Indoctrination.
it's been around for a very long time that that stuff
Uh-huh.
is not real. It's imaginary. It can't be happening. We're in a physical world that doesn't have ghosts, and we don't have out of body experiences. And near death experiences are a fluke, or you ate the wrong candy, or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's all just hormones that are being released in your brain, and that's why you hallucinate. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's funny that everybody has the same hallucination. That's kind of weird, isn't it? So, yeah.
One of the things that I learned a long time ago is we call those weirdnesses coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
And my idea is there are no such things as coinkydinks.
No.
And that the coinkydinks are actually us connecting and then following up on the connection.
Mm-hmm.
I, growing up, had many times. I mean, it even happened to me 2 weekends ago. Growing up, I'd be at a coffee shop or I'd be at a restaurant and I'd be just minding my own business, reading my Kindle or reading my book. And some random person would literally pull a chair out at my table, not ask me, sit down, tell me their life story, things that you wouldn't tell your best friend, we'd have a discussion and then get up and walk away.
Mhm.
And I have this happen all the time.
Mhm.
Well, for the first couple of years, it was like, this is just really strange. Does this happen to everybody? And it wasn't happening to everybody. It was just pretty much happening to me. I mean, I could be sitting in a restaurant for a very long time, for hours, and nobody else sat with anybody else and did this. And then I started getting very curious about it and diving into, okay, what's really going on here? And what I learned is in every single case, those people needed to hear something I had to say, and I
Mhm.
needed to hear something they had to say.
Mhm.
And so one of the discussions I had with a lady about a month ago is when I told this story, she says, well, just last weekend I had somebody do this and I was really upset. I was kind of angry that they would invade my space. And you could see it in her face, right? But she said, for whatever reason, I held my tongue and I didn't react, even though I was feeling it. And then about 5 minutes later, they said something that I needed to hear. And she said, it changed my perspective on so much by not reacting to the anger and telling the person to leave me alone and
Mhm.
actually giving that space for whatever needed to happen. She actually got something that she really needed that was a key for her life going forward.
Mhm.
And so we're taught that we're these small independent beings and that we should get mad when people invade our space. And yet I would argue that those are the signposts. Those are the things that when we pay attention to, we actually start remembering what we are.
Mhm.
Yeah. I call those synchronicities. When
Yes.
these things happen where you're like, I was just talking about this with my friend, and now this is happening, and now this person is talking to me, and they don't know each other. And it's like, oh, okay, got it. It's a theme. This is a lesson. Or I've even had it. I mean, now since I work on that spiritual part more and more, when someone tells me something and I have an epiphany, as soon they keep talking, they're talking, and while they're talking, I'm like, God is speaking through you right now to me. I'm supposed to hear that. You're a tool right now. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's even more beautiful when you're aware of it.
Mhm.
Exactly right.
So you wrote a beautiful book, The Infinity Within, got awards, is super seller, and what stood out to me is these three things that I wanna highlight. Breakthrough fear, which already the first one is just a mic drop. That's because it's so hard. Fear is a huge block for people. Trust your inner power. Again, trust yourself. Big issue because we are programmed not to do that, right? We are
From day
programmed
one.
to, from day one, from even before we're born, because our mothers are indoctrinated while they're pregnant. Oh, don't get me started on that. It's a whole other podcast. And then create a life that reflects who you truly are. I mean, those are very advanced things, right? And what I liked about when I read about you is sometimes when you have people in the metaphysical space, they're very philosophical and they talk about big things and everything is very, you're like, okay, great. What do I do with this? And you're more like the practical guy. You're like, no, I can actually tell you exactly how to get there. So that's that's what I want to do with you today is like, yes, we need to be practical and not just talk in, riddles and metaphors and everything is just a theory and blah, blah, blah. But people sometimes they're like, yeah, sounds fantastic. It's romanticized, but
But what do I do
mm,
with it?
yeah,
How do I
yeah,
actually face fear? What does that mean? Yes.
exactly. Yeah, so walk us through the first point, right? How do we break through this huge obstacle of fear? And I don't
Absolutely.
even know, what is it called? There's a chart. Do you remember that chart where it tells you the frequency of emotions?
For
And
sure.
fear is like with shame at the very bottom, has the most,
Not up
like,
here. That's for darn sure.
yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So first off, I want to say that there's kind of two kinds of fears, right? There's the
Mhm.
one fear where the saber-toothed tiger is chasing you down the hill and you really should run. I mean, That's
Mhm.
kind of what you really should do, right? The second kind of fear is the one we're talking about here, and that's the fear that's here. How does that look? Well, I'm going to make it easy to digest, I'm going to use an example. One that a lot of people have probably faced in life, and that is I've been at my job for 5 years. I want a raise, and I'm afraid to ask my boss for a raise.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, what does that do? Well, the minute I think I want to ask for a raise and I all of a sudden drop into fear of, I don't want to do this, I've now hit a block in life. And if I ignore that block or don't do anything, that thing is stuck. And I can almost guarantee you that over the next period of time, you'll develop resentment against your boss, your work, and everything around it because you're stuck with this fear, right?
Mhm.
So the first thing I says is when you're feeling a fear, the first thing you want to do is be curious and ask 3 questions. What am I fearful about? So actually, the first step really is this, when you start feeling it, because usually fear appears here in the chest or in the stomach, is pause,
Mhm.
take a breath, and then ask a question. Where is this fear coming from? Next question. How is this fear serving me today? And last question. How does this fear serve me going forward tomorrow? Those 3 simple questions shift a fear from a block to a conscious decision.
Mhm.
Now, how does that look? I'm afraid to ask for a raise from my boss. Well, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of being fired? Am I afraid of being laughed at? Am I afraid that he's going to say no? Am I afraid that my peers are going to be mad at me because I asked for a raise? What is it I'm actually afraid of? And how is that serving me today? Well, let's say I'm afraid that I'm going to get fired. So the way that fear is serving me today is I don't want to lose my job. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. And then I'm afraid that I'm going to not be able to pay my bills. And
Mhm.
then I'm afraid that I might not get another job. Great. So you run down that path, but what it leaves you with is now instead of being blocked by the fear, you can say, all right, what's the worst thing that happens if I ask for a raise? I get fired. Okay, how does that look? So now you've moved it from being fearful to I have a choice with conscious consequences that might happen or might not happen. But at least now I'm aware of them. And now I can make a choice. Do I want to go ahead and ask and take that risk? Because there's a 50% chance that my fear is not real and I'm going to get my raise. 50% chance that I'm going to get fired. 50% chance he just says no. I mean, there's the problem with not asking, and in relationships, this is a real big deal, is if somebody has an angry face and we don't ask, we tend to make up a bunch of stories.
Mhm.
And it burns a ton of energy because there's an unlimited number of stories we can come up with for what that face is doing. And yet, if we simply take a moment in time and ask the question, what's going on for you right now? We don't burn up that energy and we get an answer that's from them. Now, they could be lying to us, but the bottom line is at least they've answered and we're not making stuff up. Same thing with fear and asking for a raise. We can sit there and create 1,000, a million reasons of what bad things are going to happen if I ask for my raise. And we're going to be stuck in that loop and burn a ton of energy and feel really bad about it. Or
Mhm.
we can ask those questions, the 3 questions, and then make a decision of what's important to us.
Mhm. And I wanna add something to that, if I may.
Absolutely.
Like what you said, working on this block, that is gonna be life-changing work Because it's once you work on that one thing, like beautiful example with your raise, you think you're just working through that, but actually you're working through your entire thought process about anything in life.
You're
And
reprogramming fear.
exactly. And what I have come to the conclusion is also when I ask myself, why are you scared of that? Like what you said, well, it could be that, I get fired, or he would say no. And then I go deeper and I go, well, why would he say no? Do I think I'm not worthy of that raise? And it's like, oh, now we're getting into the nitty gritty. So now we have a self
Now
worth
you're getting
problem, right?
now you're getting to the
Yeah.
second part of fear, which is doubt.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
are you doubting about yourself? What are you doubting about the environment? What are you doubting about the work? What doubts come up from the fear? I talk about fear as a signpost. Anytime you have fear, instead of fearing it, go, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity to figure out some of my internal doubts, some of
Mm-hmm.
my internal fears, things that are stopping me in life, as you said.
And it's profound because now you're getting a ball rolling, literally the boulder that's made you stuck. And obviously we're not saying you're gonna crunch this thing down in 5 minutes, right? But putting the work into resolving that one thing will
Just one little
resolve a
thing.
whole bunch of other things.
Yeah. If you just attack one fear at a time, it's kind of like the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? You're
Mhm.
not going to go after your entire fear of your entire life. That's just not doable. But what you can do is when the fear starts coming up and you can feel it, your body does it first. Your adrenaline starts going, you start getting tense, you start getting tight. When you feel that, step back and take a breath. That's the very first part of the training. Just step back and take a breath and then ask, what am I fearful of? How is it
Mhm.
serving me now? And how does it serve me going forward? And then, like you said, after you answer those questions, you can start digging deeper into it. Is okay, am I doubting myself? Am I doubting my boss? Am I doubting my work? Am I doubting my worth? Am I doubting, all those things? And then you can go and ask the same questions for doubt. Why am I doubting my worth? How is that serving me today? But then the last question you actually reverse. Instead of how is my fear going to help me going forward? Where did that doubt come from in my past?
Mhm.
What is driving the doubt I'm now feeling today? So fear, you look forward. How does it help me? Doubt, you look backward. Where is it coming
Mhm.
from?
Mhm. Because doubt is always something you have been taught.
Fear is as well, but less so. Fear is more like our reptilian brain and that saber-toothed tiger coming down and eating us, right?
Mhm.
Fear is one of those things that pops up because we're unsure of what's happening in the future, which is why I like to ask the question of how does this fear serve me going forward, right? Because I'm freezing because I'm uncertain of what's going to happen if I go forward.
Mhm.
Doubt, as you said, doubt is trained. Doubt is from childhood, pre-childhood, peers, parents, whoever we've interacted with, whether they meant to do it or didn't mean to do it, there are doubts created in our psyche and programming that's there that runs on its own unless we're aware of it and can completely hijack our lives.
And a lot of times they're related to the doubt and the shame. They go in like a circle. They fuel each other. And I mean, we
Blame,
all do that.
shame, blame, shame, guilt, blame, shame, guilt,
Yep.
blame, shame, guilt, blame, shame, guilt. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And I
how
mean,
much, go ahead.
I would just want to say we all do that every once in a while, right? I mean, we go what if, well, what if this, what if that, what if this, and then getting out of this can be really hard.
But when you start that what if, do you feel it here?
Yes.
So what do you do?
I usually take
Slow
to
it
breathe.
down.
Yeah, I breathe. I
Take
breathe.
a pause. Because if
Yeah.
the loop starts taking over, we go into fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And once we're in fight or flight, our conscious thinking mind takes a back seat.
Mm-hmm.
Once we're in fight or flight, flop, and whatever the 5 different F's are, once we're there, our cognitive ability to think takes a backseat. So the more we can stay in our cognitive state, meaning pause, breathe, start being curious and asking questions, we move us away from fight or flight, meaning the saber-toothed tiger is chasing us down a hill, run fast, right?
Mhm.
That's definitely flight,
Yeah.
versus I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to pause, I'm going to get curious about this, I'm going to start asking questions. And just by asking the questions, that step alone, you'll start feeling the whole thing dissolve.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I think that's a great step too when people are at that point where they can recognize that they are in that state. That can be really hard for people that have never worked with this before, that they don't even know they are in that state. Because to me, now that I'm recognizing it, it's almost like I am outside myself and I'm looking at myself. Sometimes I wish I could actually go outside, like out my own body and be slap myself and be like, stop that immediately, but I
The good
can't. So
news
I'm
is
trying to, you know.
the good news is you can't.
I don't know if that's a good idea, Kris. I would have a black eye.
Yeah, no, you don't have to hit yourself, but you can certainly step out. I had a situation years and years and years ago. I think I was 18 or 19, where a situation was going on. I had a negative emotion.
Mhm.
Negative emotion was starting to consume me. And then for whatever reason, I felt myself drift out of my body, look down on myself in that state, and start laughing, because it was like I didn't have to beat myself.
Yeah.
What I did though is I was looking and going, this, in the scope of everything in life and everything, this is really silly.
It's ridiculous.
Now,
Right.
when I was in my body, it was real.
Mm-hmm.
The emotion was real. The what was going on was real for me and my body. But when I stepped out and looked down and actually looked at what I was doing, it's like, oh yeah, this is just really silly. This is crazy stuff. And was able to completely back out of that space. So we all have the ability, but the key word that you said was, I start getting in this loop, right? If you can, for all those people that get in the loop and are not used to how to diffuse this, the key is feeling the body first, feeling the tightness in the chest or stomach. And when you feel that, make that as your programmed reminder to pause and then become curious. And those two steps by themselves will start reprogramming how you deal with stress, fear, anger, doubt, all those negative emotions. Because anger typically is the tip of the iceberg. And then the fear and the doubt usually fall down, and what's the emotion behind the emotion question?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us will get angry because we're confused, or because we don't understand something, or because we're fearful, or because we're doubt, and we're angry because we doubt. Kind of like you said, well, I doubt my self-worth. Well, that makes me angry and shameful because I don't think I'm good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But all of those usually start with that tenseness.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we use that as our flag, or fear as our signpost, and then take a breath and pause and then become curious, we can start dismantling.
Yeah. I just for an example, when you talk about anger, this is how and through learning and books and counseling and all these things, I have learned exactly what you're saying. When I feel anger, I know that anger comes from pressure for me, for example. There's a lot of, and I can even feel that pressure. It's like it's coming over here. And now that I just recorded a traditional Chinese medicine episode, by the way, and she said, oh, yeah, anger is the qi going up. Like, oh, that makes so much sense because that's right. Blood pressure, it rises. We get like red in the face, and it makes so much sense. And then I asked, why am I angry? Well, XYZ person did XYZ. Why does this make me angry? Well, because of this. Well, why is this bad? Well, because of this. And you know what? Every time I went to the last why, I came to shame and fear. I was like, Lord, I mean, it's always shame and fear. The bottom emotions on this scale that we have is always the source for all these other negative emotions. It's fascinating, frustrating, but also things to work like yours. Well, now I have the insight of that, and now I can work on that differently.
Exactly. Yeah. The first step is understanding. The second step is reprogramming.
Would you say that when we come to the second point, trust your inner power, that this is now what comes next? Because now we uncovered, well, you're doubting yourself. And that how do we now restore the fighting that doubt and trusting yourself?
So I'm going to take a segue on that question
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
because there's the simple kind of mechanical answer, and then there's what I would consider the overarching answer. So back to the story about the book and the soul, and that we're these soul-like beings.
Mm-hmm.
And we have what I call the game of planet Earth. Well, what is the game of planet Earth? Well, it's a fourth dimensional construct, meaning that the primary motivator is time. Great. What would a soul-like being find interesting in a fourth dimensional construct? Why would it want to even play in a fourth dimensional construct game? And I could only come up with one reason. Want to take a stab?
My idea is very bland. My idea would be, well, because I don't have another choice.
So we all have choices. As a soul being, you have infinite choice.
Mhm.
But in time, there is one thing that we can do that you can't really do without time at all, and that's experience or experience emotion.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's run with that for a minute. Let's say that our soul-like being, our godlike being, has an interest in playing the game of Earth in order to experience emotion to its fullest. And I don't mean just the good ones. I mean all of them.
Mhm.
Great. I'm at the pearly gates. I'm looking into this game called Earth. What does it look like? Well, the playing pieces are a piece of us, an avatar, let's say. The turns are lifetimes. And now we look at the rules. What are the rules? Well, let's start with rule one. Rule one is that when we go to play in this game, we agree to put all of our godlike abilities and leave them out. Now, why would we do that? Well, the simple answer is if you and I sat down and played Monopoly and I grabbed all the properties and I grabbed all the money, you probably wouldn't want to play Monopoly with me ever again.
Uh-huh.
So we agree as godlike beings to leave all that godlike stuff out because it's not really a fun game if everybody comes in here as gods. Great. That kind of solves the problem of experiencing emotion, except
Uh-huh.
for my favorite dog runs across the street, gets run over, and I go, I don't like that emotion. So I draw on my powers and I change the outcome. So even though we could experience some emotions, we really wouldn't experience them very deep because anything we didn't like, we would just simply change.
Yep.
Right? In comes rule number two. We agree to forget we have them.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That solves the problem of experience, but it doesn't solve a new problem, which is what I call an infinite time loop trap. Meaning that if we only had those two rules, that piece of us in this game would be stuck here forever. And as soul-like beings, I'm betting we probably wouldn't do that. So in comes rule number three. We're going to have turns. And in those turns, when we're agreeing to come play, we're going to roughly put together what we want to accomplish per turn and kind of how many turns in order, if we accomplish them each time, what the sequence of events look like, and then we basically win or leave the game. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But rule three has a twist. When we're in the turn in our lifetime, there's these certain goals we need to achieve. And if we don't, we get to do that life over and over and over again until such time as we figure out whatever it is we wanted to do. And then we get to move on to the next turn, eventually leave. Okay, that makes sense. And then rule 4 is, even though I call it a game, which some people have asked me, well, that sounds really frivolous. I mean, how is a game serious? Well, that's rule 4. And that is that when we're in here playing, we're 100% invested. So in the book, Gabe asks Elias this question, his mentor. He says, well, if it's a game, how serious is this? And he says, well, have you ever been to a America football game, or more importantly, a European soccer game, football?
Mm-hmm.
How serious do the players and the fans consider that game?
I am German, and I have been at live soccer games. I grew up in Germany, and I'm telling you right now, it's life or death.
Yeah, I
Yes.
lived in Milan for a year, and I lived near the Fiero, which is the big Coliseum where they play soccer.
Yep.
And I kid you not, at 9 in the morning, the riot teams start rolling in with big trucks filled with military in full-on riot
Yes.
gear. And that's the beginning of the game day. It's like, what is going on here? And there was people throwing mopeds on people. I mean, it's crazy stuff. So Elias says, well, yeah, it's a game, but it's a game with teeth. We're here to really experience emotion. We're not here to consider a frivolous game. Okay, so that's enough about the rules. In the Infinity Within, there's 4 more rules that I discuss and how they work and why they work and blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is, what we're saying is that we're these infinite beings that have put a part of ourselves in this construct in order to experience emotion and do certain things in each lifetime. And then if we get confused, or we get off track, or we buy into the secret sauce that we're small and disconnected beings, we get stuck. Now, why does that work? So I'm going to take another segue. Have you ever played tic-tac-toe? Okay. Do you play it now?
Sometimes at a restaurant with my kids if they're bored.
Okay. Do you play with other adults?
Sometimes with my husband.
Like, how often?
Very rarely.
How come?
It's quick. It's 50-50 shot. Usually it's not very exciting.
Boring, right?
Yeah.
Pretty boring? I mean, really?
Yeah.
So now take that viewpoint up to a soul level. Do you think a soul is going to pick a game of tic-tac-toe to play? Or do you think a soul is going to pick a game that's more like chess or Go to play?
Definitely something with more detail.
So now we look at, what does that really mean? That means that this game is designed, that we've agreed as co-creators to make this really hard and really interesting. This is not tic-tac-toe. This is a game designed to keep us busy, to keep us away from our paths so that we're in it and we feel more deeper experiences and emotions, right? But on the reverse side of that, I would argue that we are also, when we agreed to play, we've agreed to also allow ourselves cheat codes that we drop in occasionally, depending on where we are. But the game is designed to make us ignore the cheat codes and consider it not real, or bad food we've eaten, or a nightmare, or a dream, versus maybe that cheat code was actually reminding us who and what we are. So if you go along that path, and now you get back to your question, do you remember what it was?
How to trust your inner power.
Okay. So have you seen the movie Matrix?
Yes.
Do you remember when Neo was visiting the Oracle the first time? And he
Yes.
saw the young boy that was taking a spoon and bending it. And he asked the boy, how are you doing that? And the boy said, well, it's not so much that I'm bending the spoon, It's recognizing the spoon never existed to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that really saying? If we're in this fourth dimensional construct to experience emotion, but when we agreed to play, we have these soul paths, which, by the way, was the original name for the book, Soul Path or Your Soul Path. We are here to go on our soul path, but the game is designed to keep us off our soul path.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I wrote the book, again, is not to preach, it's not to tell people what to believe, but it's to kind of take you on a story that shows that maybe you're a lot more connected and bigger than you ever thought or dreamed of in this lifetime. And that maybe when you start taking fear as a signpost and removing doubt by being curious and asking questions, you start remembering that you're actually this connected being playing a game to experience emotion. Now, how does that affect you if you start getting down that path in believing in yourself?
It opens a lot of opportunities.
Now, one of the scary parts of that is that we don't get to blame everybody else. We don't get to play victim anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? We're co-creators in this game,
Mm-hmm.
which means we're actually responsible for what's happening. Nobody else is. And that's a scary place because we're taught from children up, oh, they hurt me. Oh, they did these bad things to me. Oh, this is horrible stuff. I had no control. And we're intentionally taught we don't have control for a reason, to keep us in the illusion, to keep us off our soul path, to
Yeah.
experience emotion. But when you start breaking away fear and doubt from it, you start bending spoons. You start seeing you actually have a lot more power than you've ever been told. And that's where the teachings of Jesus, Buddha, and all the different teachers throughout history, I think that's what they were really trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
is they figured out some code through either cheat codes or whatever. They tied into more of themselves. They had a viewpoint from tying into more of themselves. And they're saying, hey, everybody, wake up. This is what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
We're all capable. Every one of us can do these things. Does that shift your perspective and give you more power to actually go do things in life?
Mm-hmm. Radical self-responsibility. It reminds me of when, I mean, nowadays everybody watches The Chosen, or which is great, makes everything come to life. But I don't know. I'm very interested in other religions. I don't know as much of them as I do Christianity. So when Jesus told his disciples, oh, yeah, you can totally do miracles. You can do the same thing that I do. You can cast out demons. And then when it doesn't work, he tells them, oh, you're not believing. You're not believing. And then, most people say, well, they didn't believe in the Holy Spirit. But I think actually they didn't believe in themselves, that they
Okay,
couldn't do it. Like,
but pause there for a second.
yes,
What if you're the Holy Spirit
right.
and you doubt in yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how that
Yep.
shift is there?
Yeah.
If you go through the Bible and you shift it just slightly, that, wait a minute, I'm the child of God.
Mm-hmm.
The Holy Spirit is actually a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm not believing in is me. Doubt.
Yeah.
You can teleport all over the place unless there is a little smidgen of doubt that says, oh, no, no, you can't. Doubt is the key. Fear is the signpost. Doubt, or what I say, fear is the bricks that keep us from seeing through the illusion, and doubt is the concrete that keeps the bricks in place. When you can believe past doubt, you have the ability to do pretty much anything, which is one of the things fundamentally. Now, I am not suggesting this for anybody, so I just want to be very clear that near-death experiences don't go out and do.
Please
But
no.
what I can tell you about a near-death experience is, because I've had it, is that it removes doubt from the equation 100% for whatever time that near-death happens. And you shift reality, because if you don't remove doubt, guess what? The near-death becomes full death. It's black and
Yeah.
white. There is no shades of gray in a near death. There's either full death or near death.
Yeah.
But the key is that during that fraction of a second or that whatever happened, doubt, you didn't even think about it. There was no thought about doubt or I can't do this or it's impossible or whatever. It just happened.
Mm.
And that's why these people fundamentally shift how they look at life, is because they go, oh crap, when doubt is removed, I can do anything.
Mhm.
Now, here's a fun thing. If I take this spoon and I start bending it, the game is designed to do something fascinating. And I've done this time and time again. It's fascinating. Even after years of playing and testing and doing these things, I start bending the spoon. My very first emotion is exhilaration. Oh my God, I moved the spoon.
Uh-huh.
And within a millisecond, in drops fear and doubt. No, you didn't. You imagined it. It never happened. You're not able to do that. And it's
How do
within
we debunk
millis.
this? The scientific explanation for this. Mhm.
I looked the wrong way. The light shone in my eyes and it made it look like it bent.
Mhm.
A meteor hit the spoon. I didn't bend it. I mean,
Mhm.
we can come up with all kinds of reasons that we're not seeing these little miracles and big miracles in life daily. And we come up with all kinds of excuses of why coincidences are coincidences and actually not us connected beings having a conversation.
I had an experience when I was a child, not near death or anything like this, but I had a experience with seeing and even interacting with beings. Uh, and I do remember, even though I was so small, I can still remember this. And what I vividly remember, the most vivid memory of that moment was my thought as a little child: do not ever think this was a dream. Don't ever let anyone tell you that this was a dream. This is real. I am sitting here right now. I'm looking at this. Don't ever believe that this was a dream
Hence,
or that
code.
that's, yeah.
You dropped
Mhm.
yourself a cheat code
Mhm.
that you can then build from.
Mhm.
And not only did you drop yourself a cheat code of seeing these beings, but you dropped yourself another cheat code that says, don't ever forget this.
Mhm.
And that
And the
probably is the thing that
awareness,
shifted you.
yeah, and the awareness of a child that that would be the thing that would be happening. This is going to happen. You're going to think that you were dreaming, that this wasn't real, that this is a fluke. Having that awareness as, I don't know, a 4-year-old, to me, still today is very fascinating.
Yep. It's because when we drop in, we don't have the programming solidified yet.
Mhm.
Each time we come into a turn, we're coming in fresh. We still have agreements. We still have the rules. We still agree to forget that we're godlike beings, but we're closer. In other words, we're dropping from what we were into the game again. And so
Mm.
that dropping in is fresh. And until the game programming starts kicking in and reminding us how small we are and how disconnected and you ate the wrong mushrooms and
Mhm.
whatever it is, your child, your 4-year-old went, yeah, this programming is going to kick in pretty strong. So I'm going to make some promises to myself right now.
Mhm. Even when, and I don't wanna derail this, but even when, because I'm also a skeptic. Every once in a while,
Everybody is.
I wanna debunk something, and I'm like, "Yeah, but, well, it could be," so I'm trying to stay. Yes, I'm very spiritual, and I believe in a lot of things, but I also do wanna be, like, I don't know." Uh, so, I had a friend who took psychedelics way long ago, right? And who then her husband then boyfriend took psychedelics, and they were separate from each other, and they had the same trip, and they were together in their experience, experiencing the exact same thing in the exact same moment of time, where I'm like, I cannot explain this. You can talk about subconscious all day, but that is weird. Or when I had the guy on here who talked about meditating in a float tank, he has a float tank spa. And he says, well, a lot of people hallucinate or have some sort of spiritual encounter when they are in a float tank. And then I say, great. You can now debunk this with saying, oh, well, you were so relaxed that you were in an altered state of mind. But why was it that hallucination? Why did you see this? I could have seen pink unicorns running around, but I didn't. I saw something that was meaningful and that gave me an insight or a download or whatever. So it's all of these. Yes, you can debunk it to a certain level, but you will always have the question of, yeah, but why this way? Why was it that way? Or why did it go this way? Or why did it sound like this? So it's, like what you say, it's when we get to that, back to that connection, it is for us. It's things that we
It
actually
is.
know. It is us. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that in the Infinity Within, I think it's chapter 2. I'm pretty sure it's chapter 2. He meets Elias, and he's at a coffee shop, and Gabe is sitting there having his coffee, and he just knows that he's going to meet somebody. Somebody's going to sit down, and Elias shows up, gets his coffee, and sits down at Gabe's table. And his opening question to Gabe is, "Do you believe you have a soul?"
Mm-hmm.
That was his opening question. Well, that's a pretty significant question, right? So
Yeah.
Gabe is sitting there going, okay, this is not what I was expecting. And so they talk about it a little bit, and Gabe says, I get that people talk about souls and all these different things, but I can't feel it. I can't touch it. How do I know a soul really is real, that it really exists? And Elias says, yeah, I get that. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe in love? Why? Can you touch it? Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it physically manifested somewhere? Or do you just know it exists? And then here's the shift. In the same way you view love, take a look at the soul. Just because we can't touch it and see it doesn't mean it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
I can't touch and see air. I know I'm breathing it. Right? Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things. Again, I think it comes down to the agreements we made and where we are and what the purposes are. This is, in the Infinity Within, it's just a construct, it's just an idea or set of ideas that kind of made sense by asking questions. And it
Mm-hmm.
seemed to really resonate, and it came in the form of downloads to me, and I just kind of Elias was my written version of downloads. Um, but what I found is the reviews I'm getting on the book achieved what I wanted to, and that is one of my favorite reviews says it's like sitting down with my best friend and having a talk about life. It's designed to be both soft and world changing as you read it in a very subtle way.
It's beautiful. It's an activator, right? I call those activators. Mm-hmm. I am so blessed that I have a friend. She has been on the show a lot of times, and she knows that because I tell her that all the time. Her name's Annika, and I always call her my activator. She is literally a walking activator for me. She will talk, and I will have. I mean, it is just one epiphany after another. And I talk to her, and while I'm talking, I'm like, just had an idea. Oh, this is why I'm doing this. Oh, stuff like that. And it's just one download after another. And then after we talk, I get downloads, and it's crazy. And from the, what do you call that? Human design. We're both manifestors.
Nice.
And I'm an
Oh,
informer, and she's an activator. So I feel like
yeah, it works
it is
well together.
it's beautiful. Yeah, yeah. So it's
I found
very
out I'm a
cool.
reflector.
Okay. See? Yeah, and that maybe this is why your book is doing what it does in people. because you need all of these things. It needs to activate you. It needs to reflect who you are. You need a reminder every once in a while, right? So that is a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where can
manifestors are
people
awesome.
where can people get your book? Just so everybody can get their hands on it.
So I'll show you what it looks like. I've got one back here, just so people can visually see it. So that's what it looks like.
Oh, that's beautiful artwork.
Thank you. I actually, the Eric Hoffer Award. There's a book award which I haven't gotten any. I don't know yet if I've won that or gotten any place in the Eric Hoffer Award, but I did get an Eric Hoffer Da Vinci Eye Award for the book cover.
Wow.
And Eric Hoffer is a book award company that's been around since I think 1922.
Wow.
So they're like one of the oldest book
Yeah.
reviewing, award-winning, blah blah blah. Thank you. I've been very blessed. If you look up my name, Kris Land, Krisland, or the Infinity Within, I take over the first 3 or 4 pages of each of the search engines.
Mm-hmm.
You can't not find me. The book is available on Amazon, Apple, Barnes and Noble. Of all places, you can go to Walmart and get it.
Okay.
It's also at bookstores in Norway, Barcelona, France, Italy. I've gotten calls from all over the world from bookstores that are
Wow.
now carrying the book. So that's been phenomenal. The Audible book, of course, is available on the different Audible versions, like Audible on from Amazon and then Apple Audible books as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get it pretty much anywhere.
Awesome.
And then if you go to Krisland, KRISLAND.com, that's
Mm-hmm.
my main website where you can find not only this book, but other books and then some different discussions I've been having and different blogs and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. That was fun because this is really your landing page where everything is connected. There's a YouTube channel on there, your social media, where to get the book, how to get the book, all the podcasts you've been on. So that's really a cool one-stop shop kind of thing where people can
Thank
go.
you.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
always lovely when we have one thing where everything is connected on it.
Try. It was funny because I ran a web analyzer that I built. So I work with a lot of AI stuff. I've been in the technology space my whole life. And so I ran an analyzer, but when I programmed the analyzer, I made it to be snarky.
Mm-hmm.
Intentionally, because it's like, I love constructive and not so constructive, well, always constructive criticism, but I like criticism and or positives on what I'm doing, but I wanted to give it a personality.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked it to go evaluate my webpage and I couldn't stop laughing. It said, so the overall design is okay, but I didn't know if I should be getting spiritual nails to build a roof or whether I should be doing this with finances. So it was trying to mix the different things the different niches I've written about. He says, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really sure whether I'm doing spiritual nailing on roofing or what I'm doing.
That's hilarious.
I could not stop laughing. The stuff it came up with was absolutely priceless.
Right. That's funny. And I think I really love it that you program it that way, that it's a little, sarcastic, a little cynical to you. That's
Yeah.
funny. We all need this
You
in
gotta
our
have
life.
fun, right?
Right. Oh my gosh. Kris, an hour was not enough. I really do feel like this could go on for 3 more because we just scratched the surface. And that's why I really do recommend everybody get the book because this is obviously going a lot deeper. And also your blog posts are really, really interesting too, where it takes a deeper dive, not just into what was in the book, but, things that came later and like side quests and all of that stuff, which those are always cool. It's almost like looking at the downloads you're having and then be part of that. And that is, I always find that fascinating. And it's another activator.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If you want to do this again, just let me know.
Yeah. Well, careful. I'll take you up on that.
That works.
And I hope that y'all got something today from it. I think that was very practical because you did.
So one more time.
Yeah, please hold that up. Because it was so, like you said, step by step, asking yourself questions and where is this coming from and working on those blocks. And out of personal experience, I can really recommend working on those is worth the time. And even if it is uncomfortable, go get through that, because asking yourself those questions a lot of times relieves 15 other blocks with it sometimes, that you have around other things. So highly,
Exactly right.
really appreciate what you do.
Oh, thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
Likewise, I think what you're doing with your channel is fantastic.
Yeah. I love what I do. And I think this is my dharma. So that's why this is fun. This is fulfillment. It doesn't feel like work. That's the goal.
Agreed.
All right, y'all. You know what to do. Subscribe, like, save, share, comment, do all the things. Don't be shy. Comment if you have questions or if you want to share your own experiences with us. And we're happy to read them and to answer questions and to engage with you. And we're going to be here next week again. All right, y'all. Bye.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, a review, and share it with somebody you think needs this. Have a fabulous day. See you next time.